So if you want to travel to wherever you want, whenever you want, entrepreneurship seems to be a natural fit.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Abroaders Travel Podcast, your weekly meetup with thousands of entrepreneurs, hustlers, creators, nomads, ninjas, wanderers, and world changers, all seeking to build the skills and connections to live a life without borders. If you want to learn more about what we do or download our entire podcast archive, check out the website, abroaders.com. Happy Wednesday morning and welcome to another episode, the 40th episode of the Abroaders Podcast. I am Eric, checking in with you guys from Athens, Greece. AJ is going to be joining a little bit later in the episode, and he's going to be covering some of the opportunities for entrepreneurship and travel out there. We got a ton of great feedback thanks to a new survey up on the website. You guys wanted to hear a little bit more about that. So AJ is going to be kicking off a two-part series today to cover some of that really cool content and hopefully give you guys some inspiration and some great ideas for where to get started with location independence. Before that happens, I want to give you guys some travel hacking updates to help you guys earn those miles that'll make the international trips possible and get the knowledge you need to use them for maximum value. So, first thing you guys should know is that there is a big offer out with the Chase Ink Plus card. It is usually at 50,000 points, and this week it was announced that they've bumped up the Chase Ink Plus to 70,000 points, which is the highest it's ever been for that card. It's still after $5,000 spend in 90 days. And the only real difference here with the offer is that there's no waiver for the $95 annual fee. So in this case, if you do take up that offer, you're going to have to pay the annual fee up front to earn the points, but definitely worth an extra 20,000 points over the original offer. A couple of eligibility things to consider here. So there are two different products, actually three Ink products, which are a Chase line of business cards. So there's the Ink Bold, which is a charge card, and then the Ink Plus, which is a credit card. The difference there is that a charge card you have to pay off every single month. So there's no opportunity, even if you want to. It's never a good idea to carry a balance and pay interest, but it's not permitted with the Chase Ink Bold. And Chase has announced that they're going to be discontinuing the Ink Bold very soon anyways. That one does still have a 50,000 point offer. I want to cover a couple of things as far as what your eligibility is for these cards. So in general, you can get any card that's a different product or considered separate by the bank is one that you can get a new sign-up bonus with. So theoretically, you could get the Chase Ink Cash, the Chase Ink Plus, and the Chase Ink Bold, all for the same business. It has in fact been our strategy in the past to start with the Ink Bold, and then when applying for the Ink Plus, say 6 months to 12 months down the line, mention to the Chase representative if you end up having to call reconsideration that you wanted to take the Plus card because you were interested in the flexibility of carrying a balance. Credit card companies obviously make a bunch of money on interest, so they like to hear that, and as long as they think you're going to be responsible, they're likely to approve you for the new account. In this case, you're in a perfect situation if you already have the Ink Bold because the Ink Plus bonus just got a bunch better. So keep in mind you can apply for that card even if you already have the Bold or the Ink Cash for the same business. Another thing that you should know, Chase is a little bit more strict with their business cards in that you probably do need to have an actual business to apply. However, if you have really good credit, say anywhere above 760, you may be able to apply as a sole proprietor. And so if you do have a business idea, you can potentially get the card. In any case, they're going to base their decision on your personal credit to a certain extent because you're the one backing up the charges and personally you're responsible even if your business isn't able to pay the expenses, you're going to get saddled with that debt if something goes wrong. The bottom line here is that you can use your social security number instead of your business ID or EIN number if you don't have a business ID yet. But be aware that Chase is probably going to ask a lot of questions. So you can't just come in there and say that you want to have a lemonade stand. You're going to need to have some sort of business idea to present to the reconsideration representative. The next thing that you should know with respect to eligibility is that there's a little bit of a glitch in that the Chase Ink line of cards used to be offered with the MasterCard, and now it's offered with the Visa logo. So if you already have the Chase Ink Bold or the Chase Ink Plus, you can reapply for those even with the same business, even if you already got the bonus, and potentially get the bonus again. That's a perfect example where AJ and I had the Chase Ink Plus and still do, which is a MasterCard, So we're probably going to give this a run and see if we can get the Chase Ink Plus again now that it's been changed to a Visa, and see if we can take advantage of that 70,000 points. A couple of other things to know about the Ink card. It does come with Lounge Club benefits, which gives you 2 free visits to international VIP lounges. Most of those are in international airports. I think there might be a couple in the US. It's a smaller set than the Priority Pass, which is the club access that you get with the American Express Platinum card, but it can be a great combo with that. And the reason is that if you have the Amex Platinum and have requested that Priority Pass Select card, you can get into those lounges for free, but you can't bring a guest into the lounge unless you're willing to pay an extra $27 fee. So it can be a little bit of a pain. Like, for example, I was traveling with my girlfriend from Barcelona this week. We wanted to check out the lounge, but unfortunately I wasn't going to be able to get her in with my Priority Pass card from Amex. Because I had the Ink, which gives me those 2 free visits, one of the lounges in Barcelona accepted both types of cards. So I was able to use the Lounge Club from Chase Ink with that one, and the Priority Pass thanks to Amex for myself, and we were both able to get into the lounge in Barcelona. So that's a good hack. If you don't have the Chase Ink cards yet, and therefore don't have the Lounge Club access, you can still potentially use your Priority Pass Select from Amex to get a guest into a lounge, but the catch is that you're going to have to be at an airport where there's 2 different lounges. So if you go into the same lounge together, they're going to charge you for that guest. But if, for example, there's 2 lounges that are pretty close to each other, you can take your guest to one lounge, check them in with a card, and then take the card to yourself and go to another lounge and check yourself in. Just thought I should share a couple of those. Hopefully that helps you guys get squared away with the lounge access. One other update with respect to lounge access and actually with elite status, Aegean Airlines, which is Greece's national carrier, has just ended the lifetime gold status. So they were one of the few airlines that let their frequent flyers achieve gold status that was good for life. But unfortunately, only until they changed the policy. Now, Aegean Airlines is no longer allowing you to keep your gold status. Before, you just had to basically accrue 20,000 flown miles in a year and you were going to get gold status forever. But they've taken that away. It's no longer possible for new people to do that. And it's also no longer the case that you keep your gold status if you already did achieve it. So anybody who's already done that, had the rug pulled out from under them a little bit, they're going to have to requalify each year under the new rules. So it's a bummer, but like all good things in the travel hacking game, anything that's exceptionally good value compared to the rest of the industry is probably going to go away eventually. Speaking of exceptionally good values, I wanted to mention to you guys that the US Airways 100% bonus on purchase miles, which was supposed to go away yesterday, has been extended through October 12th. So you've got a little bit more time to purchase miles if you want to do so with US Airways. If you want to hear some in-depth reasons on why you should potentially do that and how you can make it work for a really valuable business for first class award, check out last week's episode number 39. We cover quite a bit of detail on US Airways. Speaking of 100% purchase miles bonus, Life Miles, which is Avianca, the Colombian national carrier's frequent flyer program, was running a 100% bonus as well through yesterday. And I just wanted to remind you guys, in case you did take advantage of that bonus, it is now over. But if you did buy miles, you should remember that Life Miles is devaluing their award chart on October 15th. So you have just around 2 weeks to go ahead and make your booking and lock in their current prices. So after the 15th, a bunch of the award redemptions are going to go up. So you want to burn those miles if you've got them. So make your Life Miles redemptions as soon as possible. All right, before I pass this off to AJ, I wanted to bring in one redemption tip for you guys. I had this come up a couple of different times this week, making some bookings. It's a really cool rule. We've probably mentioned it before on this show. United Airlines has some pretty cool stopover and open jaw rules in that if you book a round trip award ticket, you can actually get a free one-way flight if you don't want any stopovers or open jaws in your actual regular travel itinerary. And so the way this works, let's say that you're traveling from the US, let's say Chicago, and you want to travel to Germany. And you don't have any goals, for stopovers in Europe. It's not a scenario where you want to stop in France on the way to Germany or anything like that. You've just got a couple of weeks you want to do a round trip to Germany and back. If you do that, and that's all you book, you're leaving some travel on the table because United gives you an open jaw and a stopover on any round trip itinerary. And so what you can do is, let's say you're going to Germany for Oktoberfest. So you go in September, which is a little bit funny, but yeah, Oktoberfest is in September. You head over there, you have a great time in Munich, and then you head back to Chicago after the party's over. If you want, you have up to a year to book a one-way pretty much anywhere else in the United States. So you could go from Chicago to, say, San Diego in the winter, let's say in February, to get out of the cold for a little bit, and you get that free one-way as part of your original award itinerary to Germany. So from United's perspective, you are traveling to Germany. That's your destination. Munich's your destination. You travel back, and on the way home, your home airport of Chicago is actually your stopover. So you could stop for 3 months, you could stop for 6 months, you could stop for 9 months in Chicago, stay home, do your work, see your friends, do whatever you do. At the end of that period, you can get that free one-way all the way out to the West Coast, and then all you'd have to do is buy your one-way ticket back. So in some cases, it can make a lot of sense to do it that way. You know, if you've got a simple round-trip itinerary and you have potential plans to travel somewhere else in the U.S. on the way back, make sure you take a look at that. And the nice thing is this isn't even something that you have to call United to book. It works pretty well on the website. Once you've found your availability for your round trip, then you can just choose that multi-city option on the United Airlines booking page and go in there and just start adding that extra leg. So, pick a few destinations and check it out and see if you can find something that works. Again, keep in mind that United only charges $75 to change the dates. So if you know you want to go out to the West Coast or something like that, but you're not sure exactly when, you can lock something down and have it included in the award itinerary. And as long as you don't change the cities that you're flying through, so as long as you still want to go from Chicago to San Diego, then it's okay to change the date from February to, say, January or March, and you're only going to pay an extra $75. So in a lot of cases, that's going to be still a lot cheaper than buying a one-way flight out there. So anyways, hopefully that is helpful for you guys. I want to thank everyone who responded to the survey we put up on the website. We got some really good feedback, and that's part of why AJ is kicking off this two-part series today to talk with you about what opportunities exist out there for travel and entrepreneurship and how you can combine the two for a more enjoyable and fulfilling life. I hope you guys find it inspiring and useful. I will see you next week. I'm off to Santorini and Mykonos, and hopefully we'll be checking in from Vienna, Austria for next week's show. Talk to you later. Wherever you are, travel safe.
So we've got a poll up on the website now that some of you folks have seen, and we've asked what information you guys want to hear more about. And to a little bit of my surprise, we've gotten some feedback that says people want to hear more about entrepreneurship and travel. Now, we were a little bit vague there, just entrepreneurship plus travel, but I'm assuming most people are taking that as kind of how entrepreneurship can allow travel or what opportunities there are abroad for entrepreneurship. Just, really just all about traveling and entrepreneurship. Two things that kind of go well hand in hand, especially in the digital age. So what we've done here is we're going to do a two-part series on entrepreneurship and travel. So today is part one, and what we're going to cover today is deciding how much of a priority travel is, choosing who you want to work with, and then creating your offer. Part two in the next episode is going to be, how to maintain, grow, and possibly reset, repeat that business. So we're not talking about being the Wright brothers on that original flight, getting up and then crashing. We're talking about maintaining. That's very challenging to do. It's a lot easier to bench press and get your business up and running than it is to maintain and sustain. And in part two, we're going to talk about maintaining your business while traveling. So that's naturally just a challenging thing when you think of it. There's many more factors and variables that come into play than just working from an office or even just working from your apartment back home. The next thing is going to be leveraging your location independence to grow your business through big-time connections. So travel can cause a lot of challenges, but it also creates an enormous amount of opportunities if you really leverage the ability to be wherever you want, whenever you want. And then the final part of next week's episode in part two is when to say when you should abandon your venture for a better idea or start a new venture while maintaining your current business. So back to part one. So we're going to decide how much of a priority travel is. We're going to choose who we want to work with, and then we're going to create an offer. Those are the pretty basic steps. Obviously, it's more nuanced than that, but this is a really good starting point. So deciding on how much of a priority travel is. So this is really where it all starts. Do you want to vacation more? Do you want to have an extra, week or two off? Then entrepreneurship may not be, a fit for you. Maybe you want to just negotiate some more time off. But if you want to be wherever you want, whenever you want, location independence, as many call it, entrepreneurship seems to be one of the more clear paths to achieving that. So if you want to travel to wherever you want, whenever you want, entrepreneurship seems to be a natural fit. I think it's the most obvious and the most attainable way to travel with relatively freedom. Obviously, you've got work to do, but being where you want to be when you want to be there is pretty sweet. So the first stage is deciding that actual goal. So if you have picked the true location independence, then you're probably going to be leaning somewhere towards, a digital service. Obviously, if you're passionate about being a hairdresser, you can't really do that whenever you want, wherever you want. So this is going to lead us to, building websites or copywriting or bookkeeping, just really leveraging any skill that you can have that you don't have to be in face-to-face with somebody. And we're going to touch on this a little bit later. This is obviously a critical juncture, creating that offer, but I think there's a couple things that are more important, and mainly that is, choosing who you want to work with, or more importantly, who you don't want to work with, because that is just going to be the common denominator in your venture. You may change prices, you may change your offer, but working alone or working with your business partner, that will be the common denominator. That will remain constant. Before I go any further, I want to just kind of break it down to a few options. So there's the obvious thing of being a solopreneur, just doing it all yourself, having just one business partner, or working with a group of people. So there's obvious benefits, there's pros and cons to all of them. Working solo, you get full autonomy. You do whatever the hell you want. You price products however you want. You don't have to ever have that discussion on should we raise prices or lower prices or tweak this offering. You do whatever you want. And that's pretty cool. And you also get to keep all the money left over. You're not splitting a pot with anyone. Now, that being said, you're left with all the work. Obviously, Eric and I chose the partnership route. And I remember even in those early days, we would talk about how we could not imagine going solo. And we'd always use Sean Ogle as an example. And I don't say this to knock Sean, it's more of a testament to his work ethic and discipline, but we'd be like, man, this guy is a machine, always writing blog posts, always coming up with new offerings. Man, this guy just has to hate his life at some points just based on how much work he's putting in and just taking all on his shoulders. But he appears to have won the long game, and I wish him the best. But I do think people need to be careful if they are going to go solo, just keeping in mind how many aspects of the business need to be taken care of. And you might naturally think, well, all this source stuff, but even finding who you're going to source work to, that can be a pain in the ass, and that can take a long time. And if it doesn't work out, that means you've got to take time away from what you planned on doing to find the new guy or gal to source to. So definitely be warned. Going solo, the autonomy, I would imagine, is great, but it's a lot of work. Now, moving on to partnership, this is kind of a sticky one. Do you start a business with a friend that you trust? Do you start with an acquaintance because you don't want to risk friendship? That's kind of a big question, and that's why I have this in part one. This is a huge starting point, who you're going to be working with or the lack thereof. And actually, one of Eric and my interns, Brittany, asked me about this a few weeks ago. She's got entrepreneurial aspirations as well, and she's kind of wondering how working with a really close friend of mine, just kind of how it was and were there any challenges. And for those of you that don't know, Eric and I, we've known each other for, about 20 years. We've been friends for a really long time, grew up together. So I think she was a little bit curious about that. So I responded to her and kind of, answered her question with some questions and some comments. So if you are going to work with a friend, I think there's some key things that you need to take into account. The first thing is this a friend that you ever bicker with over petty things? If you argue about petty things with somebody, you should avoid going into business with them. I mean, think about it. There's going to be non-trivial things that you'll have to have very serious conversations about and end up coming to a joint conclusion that both people are cool with moving forward with. Eric and I are both rather frank people, and we naturally seem to avoid passive-aggressive behavior. We're pretty straightforward, and I think this bodes well for a business partner, someone that you can be frank with. I mean, in business and entrepreneurship, there's no time for, passive-aggressive bullshit. You just need to call a spade, have honest conversations, and not take things personally. And so I have the luxury of being able to tell Eric that I think an idea of his is not good or will not work, and he doesn't take it personally because he knows that I just generally am not on board with it. This isn't a normal thing, but it's vice versa. It goes both ways. Eric can tell me that he's not quite on board with one of my ideas, and it's just an honest opinion, and we value each other's opinion. So picking a business partner that you're not going to bicker over petty shit with is important, because there's going to be some pretty serious discussions you do have with your business partner. And so if you're bickering over petty things, there's no way you're going to be able to have those serious, conversations and come to a joint conclusion and move forward. Now, the next part, if you're kind of checking the boxes about working with a friend, so let's say you guys can be straightforward, you're not petty about things. The next thing is, do both friends or the group of friends share the same vision and goals for the venture? So this is something that I've actually heard Dan and Ian of Tropical MBA talk about, as well as Justin and Joe of the Empire Flippers. And I think this is really important. So, ultimately, what do you want out of the business? We've already established you want location independence. So you want the good life, travel where you want, when you want. But what else do you want? Do you want money? Are you just trying to get rich and load your bank account up? Do you want to, make a change? Does your business have social implications? Are you making a change? Or do you want to, offer a service to help as many people as possible? I mean, do you get great joy out of working with people? And if you're, let's say a book cover designer, do you just love, giving underpaid authors great deals on book covers and you love working with them? So, I feel it's inevitable with any business that you'll come to the falling fork in the road, and being on the same page makes this decision when you come to that fork in the road a little bit easier. It's, make more money now or continue to build as much equity as possible in your core business, which means you're going to turn down faster and larger profits, for the end game. Now, for Eric and I, that fork in the road has kind of been a push-pull thing. Eric and I, we've gone both ways at different points in our business for, as far as taking the quick wins go or playing the long game. And our decisions pretty much always come back to the vision we both shared for our business. The first priority was to achieve location independence. So we're not willing to put our business or ourselves in a position where we give that up. If we have a big client, let's say, that wants us to be on site for a month or something, we're just not going to do that. We have a, uncompromising desire to have location independence, something that we're happy to have achieved. The next thing is, we've also got some pretty lofty financial goals as entrepreneurs, more so based on future things we want to do. Speaking for myself, I'm really passionate about education, and I want hordes of cash, just loads of money to put into a nonprofit in that space. And then coming back to priorities, we also both wanted to have a reasonable standard of living on our entrepreneurial journey. Going back to that push-pull thing, whether taking the profits now or playing the long game, it really came down to how we were doing personally in our checking accounts. If we had some money, piled up a couple bucks, we each had, then we would, turn down those quick wins and we'd build equity in the long game. But if we were, coming tight on cash, then obviously we would put our heads down. We'd play a little bit of the short game, sacrifice some long-term profits. But, it all comes down to being on the same page with money. Are you okay making the same amount of money? Does one person have a lifestyle that's, a bit more fancier? Do they want to buy more things? Do they want to pay themselves more? You just both need to be on the same page as far as what you want out of the business. Like I said, whether it's social impact, whether it's reaching as many people as possible, or if it's just cold hard cash. The next thing that's really important, it kind of goes back to the first part about, not being petty, is if you're going to work with a friend, are you prepared to do more work than your friend? Or at least, this is a key distinction, believe you do more work than your friend without complaining about it. So this thing is cyclical. There's times Eric is more motivated than me to work just kind of like a madman, put his head down and put in 80 hours in a week. But this is because when you're in the zone or really passionate and motivated about an aspect of the business to grow or improve, you cannot assume that other person is going to be there with you. You can't understand. Being motivated is kind of a tricky thing, and it's really nuanced, and you can't expect both people to always be on the same page. So it goes both ways. So you need to be prepared to do the heavy lifting sometimes if your business partner isn't quite as motivated or doesn't quite get exactly what you're trying to accomplish with whatever decision you made or whatever change you're making. So it's a push and pull thing. Just be ready to sometimes do more work than the other person, and then also with a clear understanding know that there's going to be times they do a lot more work than you. So there should be, no bickering about that. The final thing is, and this is not a rhetorical question, is the business more important than your friendship? So some people really care about their businesses, and, their idea is the most important thing to them. You can see this, there's people that value their careers more than their family. It's a real thing. So Eric and I have known each other forever, and from day one, we agreed friendship came first. That was non-negotiable. And, touching on partnerships and working with an acquaintance or a friend, this is kind of just a final note. So if you do work with a friend and you kind of check off those lists and you're on the same page, you don't bicker about stuff, you're not petty, there's an incredible amount of trust you've already built. So leverage this. This is important. Continue to allow yourself to trust the person you know and trust the strengths you know they have. Lots of people go into businesses with certain people for, say, strategic reasons. Maybe they have, certain contacts in the space, but there isn't the trust build-up. There is not that chemistry. So working with a friend, you do have an advantage that when you go into business with somebody you know really well, it limits the emotional stress overhead of, petty shit like watching finances or worrying about being screwed. That's not even on my radar. Okay, so at this point, you have made up your mind if you want to be location independent, if you truly want to be wherever you want, whenever you want. And going through our checklist, you're kind of hashing out whether you want to be a solopreneur and take on a lot of that additional stress, but also having more autonomy, or working with a friend or a group of friends or people you know. And obviously, we stated how important it is to proceed with caution when working with friends, because if they're really your friend, last thing you want to do is screw that up. So now that you've decided you want to be wherever you want, whenever you want, and you know who you're going to work with, you need to create an offer. And now I'm going to start off with a quick little rant. The internet does not need more people making money by teaching people how to make money on the internet. There are some exceptions to this, obviously, but if you're just starting out on the whole entrepreneurship thing, don't you think it's a bit odd that you should be the person to teach people how to make money online if you've never made money online from offering a legitimate service or product? And I don't mean that to be condescending, but I just kind of find it funny when I see people starting businesses helping people make money. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, getting to creating your offer, I would highly advise creating an offer based around something that you know a lot about, or at least either you or your business partner are very proficient in. And if you don't have one of those skills, my advice is honestly just take your time until you do. If you really care that much about travel and you need to learn a particular skill in order to make it happen, you will do it, and you will do it fast. This seems kind of like common sense, but this is not the path Eric and I took. Eric and I both had a background in sales, and so we were confident that we could sell virtually anything. So we just said, all right, well, how can we travel the world? Oh, well, websites is a thing. We don't need to be, face-to-face to do that. So if I had a time machine, I would have been more patient with my offer and spent a bunch more time building skills related to the business. When Eric and I started our web agency, or at least we thought it was a web agency at the time, what we didn't realize is that we were really website brokers. Sourced all of our work, we would sell, close, and ship off the project. Now, not knowing anything about building websites when we started, that caused a bunch of stress. I mean, you can't tell if you're getting ripped off by suppliers, because I didn't even know what PHP was. It seemed stupid at the time, but we did have a viable business. We could sell websites. We had suppliers that we thought were good, but not really knowing what the hell, web design was and how to build a good website. It seems like common sense, but, going back, I would have taken more time to learn that off the bat. Now, unease and the stress did light a fire under me, and I learned HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and PHP because I didn't like that feeling of not knowing what the hell was going on. But I really wish I would have put my head down and become more proficient at, those skills sooner. And for any of you programmers out there who think PHP is a dumb language, the only reason I learned it is because a lot of our clients wanted websites built in WordPress, so there you go. So I guess the moral of the story is creating an offer or service around something you're very proficient in. And if you aren't there yet, if you don't have a skill that you think could be offered via the web or remote, just don't go there. You have no idea how much effort Eric and I put into selling this stuff just to even make enough money to live. And that was just because we're stupid and we didn't pick a business that we knew anything about. And Eric and I not to, pat ourselves on the back too much, we're both fairly natural sales folks. And at least I was trained by one of the more prominent sales organizations in the world. It's a big company. I was lucky to have some resources. So we knew what we were doing and we could sell it, but just the quality assurance and everything, you just don't want to go there. So if you don't have a skill yet, I'm a believer in the fake it till you make it to a certain point, but at least know what the hell you're doing. Fake it till you make it in business. Sure, if you're, early entrepreneur, how you price things or operations or customer service, yeah, you're faking that a little bit, and that's okay. Everybody does that, but really have a core understanding of the product or service that you're actually offering. And one thing that's kind of attached to creating your offer is having understanding of what this means. So you've got your offer and it's online. You come up with a service or a product or something, and we all want to travel, so we're not doing this face-to-face, so it's on the web. After mentioning all that, I think a lot of people underestimate how much work, skill, or connections it takes to actually make this work and actually start making money. So if you're just starting out and you don't have a bunch of cash, you can't just put up this offer and expect people to see it. A lot of people think that by magically putting up an offer online, they'll get some web traffic, have some people take them up on their offer, and they'll grow from there. It's just people think that for some reason, but this is not the case, and you're definitely naive to think that unless you know something I don't know. So when you're starting off with this offer, you need to be prepared to generate most of your business offline. And when I say offline, I mean more so in an active as opposed to passive manner. It doesn't have to be face-to-face because we're location independent like we established, but I mean calling and emailing prospects or connections that can, lead you to sales. So in my opinion, once you kind of know what you're up against and you have an offer, there's a step that a lot of people I think miss, and Eric and I definitely missed it in our first business. It's a little bit of a trap because you think, okay, I've got my offer, I'm going to work really hard and get sales. The key thing you're missing is building equity in the long game. So off the bat, yeah, you got to work really hard, but it is possible over time to get that web traffic and to have some more passive sales. Not purely passive. You'll almost always, have some emails or questions or, until you get the point that you build a team up and they take care of all your customer service. There's going to be a little bit of friction on your offer. At this point, once you have your offer and you know that you've got to be a bulldog and work really hard, you really still do need to be building some equity in the long game. So this is something like, blogging or podcasting. And when I say blogging, I don't mean, having a blog that you sometimes post to. I'm talking about taking your business blog seriously, producing great content consistently. And, this not only displays your competence in your space, but more importantly, this means that over time, you can have hundreds of pages on your website that are most likely going to generate some organic search traffic from the search engines. And, oh yeah, you guessed it, on the topic of your service, which people are obviously curious about or looking for. Podcasting, very similar to the blog. It's nothing that will pay you right off the bat, but if you consistently produce podcast episodes, this is going to have that same effect. It's just a different channel. Eric and I obviously opted for the podcast. That's what you're hearing us on right now. But, Eric and I have been podcasting for 40 straight weeks now, and we've seen some serious value from it. But even at episode 15, 19, 20, we're talking about more than a third of a year in, we saw absolutely nothing from it, but we had some really smart people tell us just, keep with it even if no one's listening, just keep talking eventually over time. If it's good content worth listening to or worth sharing, it will pay off. So we're actually over time right now. That is all we've got in part one, and keep in mind that we will have part two coming to you next week, so that's going to be how to maintain, grow, and possibly reset or repeat. We're talking about not being like the Wright brothers and getting up and then crashing. We're talking about sustaining. So we're going to maintain our business while we travel. We are going to leverage our location independence to grow our business through massive connections. And then we're going to touch on when to say when, whether we should abandon our venture for an idea we believe to be better or start a new venture while maintaining our current business. Thank you again for listening. We will catch you next Wednesday, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. This week's International Jam of the Week is by Milky Chance, and the track is Flashed Junk Mind. Safe travels and cheers.
We were young souls on the junkyard. Now we are stone minds full of jungles. But I feel.
Hey, brothers, don't be shy. Hop over to the website and join our email list for exclusive travel hacking content. If you like what we're up to, the best way you can support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Lastly, we would love to hear from you, so send your show feedback to Eric or AJ at abroaders.com. We will see you next week.
Flashlights when we're falling into that night. Focused on what you feel. Just when you were calling a love that died. And we were bound to the city light. Flashlights when we're falling into that night. Focused